Welcome to Scene, where the art world meets the real world. Every 2 weeks, we sit down with emerging and established artists to offer a genuine glimpse into their lives and minds, all in an authentic and totally straightforward manner. I'm Carrie Scott, your host. And with 2 decades of experience as a curator and art historian, I firmly believe in the transformative power of art, if it's seen. Ryan Gander has a giant opening coming up at the Pola Museum in Japan, and so we came to the studio today to talk to him about the show and everything he's got going on. And guess what? We didn't talk about it at all. And that's totally fine, because there are hundreds of great interviews that Ryan has given that explain his practice and talk about his work, because this man is a megastar in the contemporary art world. What we did today was kind of talk more personally about the point of art and why he does what he does, but also like what we're getting wrong. We got into like the deep, big stuff that really bends my mind and like keeps me up at night, and I think keeps him up at night, and really got to the heart of why any of us do what we do. It was a great conversation, and yet again, this is the 3rd time I've got to interview him. I've walked away being like, oh, that's the point. That's the point of all of this. It's epic. Now listen, the thing is with you, not only have you and I done this is like 3rd time as a charm for me interviewing you, but you've also done a bazillion interviews. Like, you're very good.
I do quite a few, yeah.
Yeah. And you're good at talking about it. You're good at talking about art generally.
Well, talking about art is art for me. They're the same thing. I think art with no discourse around it isn't really art. So, and I love talking and listening, so.
I think I agree with that, but then how on earth do I possibly, like, I don't think we can talk about your work at all, really, today. Like,
we can talk around it. We can skirt around it.
Where would you, if you were interviewing yourself, where would you start?
That's a good question. Where would I start? I would start I'd start talking about how amazing the world is outside the world of art, and then wonder why we spend so much of our attention looking at phenomenal things inside a gallery but not in the world, when the world's actually better than the things that happen in the gallery.
Oh man. Okay, yesterday.
That's an hour conversation already, probably.
It really is. Yesterday, I gave a talk at my kids' school about the art industry. And when I was preparing for it, I was like, the thing that is so weird about art that doesn't apply to anything else, like kids learn instruments at school.
Yeah.
And they suck at them. Like, my kid's playing the bassoon. He's never going to be a bassoon player, right? But he'll always have music in his life. He'll always listen to music. He'll go to shows. He'll do the thing. But that's not true for art. People bail from art in the art world. And why? Why?
Well, that's because there's this Victorian model of education that makes everything factual and tangible and not ephemeral and invisible. We don't trust things that are invisible, and art is invisible. But I think it would be really cool if, national service, where you go in the army for a year. Mm-hmm. I think it would be cool if there was a national service for everyone in this country, in the UK, that was you had to go to art school for a year. And I think the idea behind that is not to make loads of artists, because most people that go to art school don't become artists. It's more to make like creative firefighters, creative teachers, creative drive-through attendants, Because I think having a year at art school, for most people that I meet and, experiences that I have, it's a place where you work out who you are. And it's a place that you work out the strength of collectivity. So,
what do you mean by that?
I mean, like, if you look at all good bands and all good art sort of movements, genres, they all start with a scene, and the scene always starts in an art school. So there's something with art. I mean, we live in this era of the self, don't we, where it's all me, me, me. But there's something to do with art, which it's a really sort of creative, collective pursuit, not an individual pursuit. Because I think the thing about contemporary art is nothing in contemporary art exists in isolation. Mm-mm. And we have this idea that artists sit in their garret being overly romantic and pretentious, the beret, smoking galois, with the light coming in and there's like divine intervention. They put paint on canvas and the angels sing. And it's a solo activity, but it's not a solo activity. I mean, real art isn't a solo activity. The creation of decoration for your house might be a solo activity, but art that's more cognitive than retinal, that's for your brain rather than your eyes, is not a solo pursuit.
Can we talk about what define real art? What do you mean by that?
I mean, this is me talking, you know. It's not, I'm not saying, this is not like gospel. This is just what I believe, but believe it really strongly. Yeah.
The practice, your practice is bigger than you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
How?
Well, I mean, I've got this archive that's over there. There's like 200,000 starting points, and I'll never make them all.
That's 200,000 starting points.
Yeah, so there's potential. I mean, it grows as well, doesn't it? And I get older, so there's less and less chance that I'll make them all. I mean, I'm not going to make them all, that's for sure. Which has its own challenges, because you get this kind of procrastination and fear associated with it, because you're like, which one's most urgent? So art's bigger than me in that sense, because most of them won't get made, and which will be the last one that I make. One of them is going to be the last work you make. But art's, yeah.
But they're there, so you have kind of made them, Ryan.
Well, yeah, and also, isn't that a work in itself? Mm-hmm. I mean, artworks, we understand artworks as artworks, but do we understand exhibitions as artworks? Do we understand the trajectory of an entire artist's practice and life as a singular artwork, a masterwork? Artworks can be all sorts of things. This conversation could be an artwork. I think the problem is that as humans devolve, we've got to the point of evolution and we're all devolving, that's really obvious. And as we devolve, we become more conformist. So art's become, in comparison to what it was 15 years ago, art's incredibly conformist and conservative now. And it's getting more didactic and more, it's a bit of a negative thing, but it's just an observation about reality. It's not really an opinion.
But I don't think that's a 15-year-old problem. I think it's a much bigger problem because, as I said, right, and I was thinking about it with regards to my kids who obviously grow up around art and going to art, but that there will be a moment where they decide whether they're like, you know, part of this thing or not. Whereas we don't decide whether we're part of music or not. Like, why does we fall off a cliff? It's like a cultural cliff.
Yeah.
Where no one cares about art.
Yeah. Why is that?
I don't know. I thought you'd have the answer to that.
Don't have the answer. I think that there's more of a relationship between art and religion, or we make more of a link between art and religion than we do music and religion. It's more of like, you know, when you think about art, you think art's really, you know, important for every human. It's like an important part of being human.
Fundamental.
But is it really? Isn't it just like Formula One racing or wok cooking? Isn't it just, you know, when I go to Basel art fairs, sometimes I always think, well, when I first went, when I was little, I thought, God, the art world's massive, isn't it? All these people. And I was in a taxi and I said to the taxi driver, I can't believe how many people are here and it's all art. And he said, you should come next month when it's the watch fair, it's much bigger. And I thought, it's just like a little group of people that are interested in one thing. But we never think about it like that. We think of it like, more like religion, like art's for everyone, and like it's essential. But it's not really essential. Creativity is essential.
Aren't they the same thing?
No, because most art isn't creative, I think. A lot of art that you see is not creative. I know it's very contradictory.
Oh man, I'm like holding my breath. I don't agree.
You're upset?
I am upset.
I'm the bearer of bad news.
Wait, you don't mean that.
The way I'm trying to look at the art world is, say you're like an alien and you come down from space and you don't know what's going on. You just know that these humans and they do stuff on the planet, yeah? And trying to view it like that. Like an anthropologist who's pretending to be a zoologist and is pretending all the humans are animals. So I have some kind of distance from it. I'm not implied into it, do you know what I mean?
Says the man who makes conceptual art, like the hardest sort of art for
It is the hardest art, I agree with
people
that.
to get.
But I mean, I think there's only conceptual art. I think that's the only art. If it's not cognitive based, it's not actually art by definition anymore. So everything else is decoration. I know, really putting the cat amongst the pigeons. But I don't believe art's for your eyes. I believe it's for your brain.
I agree.
And there's most art that I see doesn't do anything. There's no cognition in it. So I'm really into art that confuses me. I'm into the avant-garde, what the avant-garde is now, which is art that is really, really fucking challenging, that really takes a lot of brain work to read, decipher. I mean, yeah.
But the thing that you do, we're going to now talk about your work. The thing that you do that is so clever is that at first your work, well, so think about like the tents or the dens, which are two different things.
Yeah.
Or I listened to you read a story with your daughter about time.
Yeah.
And it was, all those things I've just referenced were a bit like, took a second for me to think about, okay, dens, everyone makes dens. I made dens, and God, that's a cliche, and my kids make dens, and Ryan's kids make dens, and everyone's making dens. And so, yeah, of course, let's turn them into marble and make them permanent forever. Same with the tents, right? And so then you're like, fuck, that's really obvious.
Really obvious.
Really obvious.
Really
and then,
eloquent and really efficient.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
really universal, which is
really universal is
which
important.
is the thing I know I'm banging on about music, but which is the thing that a good song does really well. That you're listening to a song and you're like,
it doesn't discriminate.
I feel this. I know this. I understand this is about love or pain or death or whatever.
So it's like that balance between it being a cliche. Because when you do things that are universal, that are open to everyone, that everyone can relate to, like big subjects, you know, tree trunk subjects, not branches about I'm in a wheelchair, I'm this is my life story, that no one can relate to, but real things like the human condition, mortality, big love, big subjects that everyone can relate to, they can become cliches. And you can produce emojis, because emojis are essentially, in visual language and semiotics, a kind of, emoji is basically like shorthand for a cliche. So say there's 1,000 emojis, I think there's more, that 1,200, that they're just basically cliches. So it's getting that balance. I mean, all good art making is a balance. It's a balance between giving enough information for the spectator to be engaged, excited, seduced, a way in, a strategy to pull them in and spend time with the work. And on the other side of that seesaw is preventing it from being didactic, not giving too much information. So, and it's a perfect balance, and that's really hard to achieve. And actually, to make that balance, to make a good artwork and make money is almost an impossible goal. It's a really tricky thing to do. It's easy to make money from art because you can just think of something that people want to see in their apartments. But it's really hard to make an outstanding artwork that people want to engage with, that confuses and challenges people, that people want to be associated with, whether it's a museum or a private collector, but also one that makes an original contribution to human knowledge, which is the big target for me. That's really hard.
The problem with you
There's lots of problems with me.
is you just said about 3,000 things that I now need to go back. Like, I'm not quick enough to keep up with you. And you just said something, you threw away something that I wanted to get into. Okay. And you said, don't make things about the branches, like being in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that is really interesting when I think about your project as a whole is that you didn't make work about your singular experience.
Yeah, well, that would be selfish of me and egocentric.
You think that?
Yeah, totally.
Why?
I think it would be ungenerous, and because it would discriminate people, it would exclude people. Because not everybody has the handle on life that I have and the life experience that I had. Not everyone was socialised in hospital for their entire childhood. So how would they ever start to understand? And it's not my job. That's the job of a museum of sociology or anthropology. It's not art. Art's not there to give you information, that's communication. Art's there to miscommunicate and to create difference and difficulty and challenging brain exercises, and to make you think differently about yourself and make you have empathy, force you to have empathy. But just me telling my life story, you know, we call it, a lot of artists call it, this is my story art, when artists just make work about, I'm from here, I do this. This is my story. That's not really what turns me on. Well, it doesn't turn me on at all. I find it really boring. Because I could go to a different type of museum, not an art museum, and get that, or I could turn on the TV and get that. Why would I need to go to the place where all the madness can happen, all the things that can't exist in other realms of society, and find something that can exist, that already exists elsewhere? It doesn't make sense. But there's a big trend for this at the moment. Mm-hmm. But I think that won't stick around very long because the people are bored. I like magic. I like the magic of art. I like artists defying expectation. I love going to a show and thinking, oh, I know what I'm going to see. I know this artist's work, I know what I'm going to see. And getting there and it being something completely different. And it's 3 months since their last show, and their last show was completely different. That just blows my mind, how the cognitive super loops that brains can make, that kind of complexity, and put you in a place where you're like, I've never made these associations, I've never seen these collisions between signs and signifiers. This is real, like something I've never thought about. That for me is like good art. And it happens, I see it, but it is rare. And although that's what I'm trying to make, it's difficult to make it. But isn't that the point of art? Isn't the point of art, like by definition, to be unpredictable and to push boundaries, push things forwards and surprise people, make mistakes and contradict itself and be difficult and be cunning and be avant-garde, be before its time? I mean, that is the fundamental point of art. So, you know, when I see paintings of, I don't know, frogs riding unicorns in glitter, it doesn't really do anything.
Have you seen a painting of a frog riding?
I must have. I've seen lots of paintings. There must be one somewhere. I can't even, no, probably not. Actually, I need to go now because I've got a painting I need to know. And I think also for me, that idea of collectivity that we were talking about earlier, I really buzz off this idea that, you know, when you go to the pub and there's loads of artists there and you sit down, you're talking to someone next to you and they're telling you about what they've made in their studio, and you think, oh my God, the work that they're making is so good. And it makes you jealous, not envious, because envy is like undeserved jealousy, I think. It makes you jealous, but it's a positive jealousy. It's a jealousy that makes you want to leave the pub and go back to your studio and make art. It's like a pursuit and a calling. I love that. And I think that that's why art scenes and collections of people and art schools are really, 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 really interesting and important.
Has that actually ever happened to you?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a story?
Of who it is?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't tell you who it is.
Oh man.
I'm not sure I can tell you who it is. There's a Scottish painter.
I had to try.
I'll tell you later, in private.
Mark, make sure you keep the cameras rolling.
Yeah, keep the mic on. No, I mean, it happens to me a lot.
Does it?
Yeah, happens to me loads.
You do seem...
It happened to me last week in Madrid.
You seem excitable. In the best possible way.
Excitable. Well, art's really exciting. It's exciting because it can be all the things that you don't know what it is. It's all the unknown, and there's a lot of unknown. There's an infinite, impossible to imagine amount of unknown.
Well, but this is the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is a big global question that I've been thinking about forever, like since university, so 25 years or something. Yeah. That there's this book called Brothers and Keepers by John Edgar Wideman, and if I get another tattoo, I would have the words "what is" tattooed on me. Which
what is?
Because in this book, he's talking about his brother who's incarcerated for life, and he's an upstanding citizen of society, great human, and he's like, there's no way to explain that like everything is interconnected and tangled and messy. And no matter how much you backtrack and look, you cannot figure out what is.
Yeah.
And I'm sat here with this venture, platform, whatever, trying to figure out why artists make art and like why you will do what you do. But I think it's futile.
It's not futile. It's a noble quest.
Except, but you can't go back. You can't tell me why, like, why really are you an artist?
But maybe this is not. It's not the answer. It's the question that's important. Like, it's important to ask it. I mean, it's important to ask all the questions. This is the problem with the world. This is why the world's fucked, because people remember answers all the time and don't ask any questions. So, like, I go to my kids' school. They come home from school and they're like, I'm like, what did you do today? And they say, we remembered all these dates and we remembered this maths equation. How to do? And we remember. I'm like, what the fuck? That's a joke. That's like this kind of, especially in today's world, it's completely futile Victorian model of education. And the problem with remembering answers is they're always out of date because the world moves so fast. And so if you'd not, I mean, it's also when you think about machines and AI and the things that machines can do now is remember answers, but they can't ask questions. They can't ask us abstract questions. So the only thing that we've got that we're good at as humans is the ability to ask questions.
To be inquisitive.
And I think there's also this fear of a culture of learning. Most people think they go to university and they learn. And then when they leave university, they know everything, they've got their bit of paper. But because the world changes all the time, they don't re-ask questions they have the answers to. And like, yeah, that is essentially what discrimination is, because you make judgments about prejudgments, prejudice about things that you think you already know the answer to, but even though the world's changed around it and it's not the right answer anymore. So asking questions is really important. But yeah, I feel like I'm an art student still. And I think all the artists I really like act like they're art students. It's like lifelong learning. But in general, there's a kind of this weird malaise in society that people think that if you're learning, you're weak and you don't know and you're immature. You know, being closer to the culture of learning puts you in a much better position than thinking you know everything, I think. I mean, that's how discrimination exists, because of old answers. But what was the question? The question was... intent. I was going to say intent, yeah. Like, I think it's really important it's a hard question to ask yourself as an artist, but if you ask yourself, why do I make art? What is my intent? What are my intentions? Why am I making art?
An intent, do you mean mission?
No, less formal and strategic. More like, why am I so into art? Why do I make art? What do I want?
Like, what's the point?
Yeah, why am I doing it? What do I want it to do? Because if you're honest, no one likes to ask this question, because the answers are usually, I want money, I want notoriety, fame. And so artists rarely ask themselves, because I want to stay in nice hotels. There's all these other answers that most people will put into the mix that they feel really bad about. But it's natural.
But this is what I mean. It's also tangled and complicated that you can't get to the nugget of the heart of what is. Just is.
It just is. But I think if you work out what your intentions as an artist are, why you make art, you know what your art is. As an artist, you don't really know what your art is. It's kind of like, I spent like, I don't know, I'm still scrabbling around in the dark, working out what I'm making. It's always really hard.
I think your art's about time and memory.
It is about time and memory, you're right.
I got it right.
Tick. But I think it's also about inclusion. I think it's about making art that isn't elitist and uses strategies to get people to engage with it without them realising it's art.
That is the song. It's the song. It's what I mean. It's the song. It's any song. You know, I mean,
it's like, yeah.
Listening to
it's
you.
Like the riff, the good chord line or whatever, or the chorus, the catchy chorus.
For the record, everyone should listen to that story. you wrote.
Which one was it? About the magpie?
No, the one that starts, he was born in...
The biography.
And ends...
About running out of time.
Without ending. Yeah, everyone should listen to that.
Yeah.
I've listened to it a lot.
Especially if you're going through a midlife crisis. Don't listen to it if you're going through a midlife crisis. Send you over the edge, I think.
No, it did me the opposite.
Did it really? That's good.
Yeah. Wait, let's describe it for a second, because it is a story that you're telling about yourself-ish.
Yeah.
But you don't admit it.
It's like a fake biography,
It's a
artist
fake
biography.
But it ends with people reading bingo.
Yeah.
Numbers, counting down from 40.
Yeah. Numbers are weird, because I think numbers are a bit like the biggest disease of humanity.
Huh?
Because if you think about numbers, so we invented time, we didn't invent time, there was kairos, which is readiness, which is I'm hungry so I'll eat, which was a sense of time, or I'm tired so I'll sleep. But it was never done in an order, there was never a structure to it. And then humans came up with this ace idea, chronos, we'll measure time and we'll give it, we can measure it and we'll all agree to it. So that used numbers, and when we started doing that, everything started to go bad. And also, numbers is essentially accelerated capitalism, isn't it? So everything that's wrong with the world actually is because of numbers. Numbers are like the biggest disease to humanity. If we didn't have chronos, we'd still work on kairos. There'd be pure equilibrium between people and in the planet. And if we didn't measure value, if value was based on true values like attention being a bigger value than money, time being a bigger value than money, agency, freedom, agency being a bigger value than money, a greater value than money, and we didn't have money, everything would be perfect. World wouldn't end. Sorry, that was quite a big...
It was big, but the weirdest thing about it is I literally was having a conversation on Saturday with my friend Mark, who's a doctor, about time. And this sounds like we were like drinking too much, and we might have been. But he was saying the weirdest thing about time is that even the sun is not in the same time that we're in, because it's 8 minutes old. And then I was saying...
Oh, wow. Never thought,
Right?
Weird.
Like, we're looking at old light.
Yeah.
So the only reason we can see you when we're outside is because of light that's 8 minutes old.
Yeah.
Right, that gets a bit loopy. But on top of that, when you think about how we experience time completely differently in different moments.
Yeah.
Right, so this for me, I'm cognizant that we're running out of time and I have to stop because people's attention spans don't go forever.
Yeah.
But this has felt like a 4-minute conversation, and it hasn't been.
Yeah.
But for you, it might have felt like a 25-hour conversation.
No,
and we have
like
no way
4
to
minutes.
measure. Oh,
But I know,
both on
but I
4.
know.
Okay. But we have no way to measure our...
Time's elastic.
Yeah, but that's wild.
It's good. So I mean, I think that, maybe we are in control of our lives more than we think we are. You know, that people like want to, I don't want to be this old, I want to live longer. Why does time go so fast? That's controllable. That's controllable. You can use your brain to, I mean, the imagination is such a strong muscle. You can use your imagination and you can use cognition to control things like time, definitely. To slow down time, basically, and make your life longer.
But that's why I think your whole project is about time, because you're asking people to pay attention to the smallest things.
Yeah. Oh, we're just all distracted, aren't we? We've created all these distractions to distract ourselves from the fact that we're going to die and we don't know what's after death. I mean, that's the thing that's different between animals and us. A little rabbit just gets hit by a car and it's dead. It doesn't spend its whole life worrying about if it's going to get hit by a car like we do. So that kind of ability to imagine the future and imagine your own demise is that's what makes being human really, really difficult. And so I think time's specifically important to humans. And I think we've created a lot of distractions so that we don't have those mortality trips and wake up in the middle of the night thinking, oh God, what if? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So we've invented alcohol and religion and the internet, Instagram, all these stuff that's just going to distract us from, or keep us thinking about something else rather than the big questions. The frogs riding unicorns in glitter.
But by that logic, then your work is just another distraction.
It is, apart from the fact that you use the word cognizant, and I think there's the difference between the other distractions and the distraction of art is it's healthy. So I always think, like, there's kind of, everyone's very obsessed with Pilates and going to the gym and everything. At least around me they are. But we never think about our mind like that, our brain like that. And there's like a huge mental health epidemic, obviously, at the moment, because of the internet and social media. But we never visualize the brain as a muscle. And I always think that, like, going to a gallery or a museum is a bit like taking your brain to the gym, because it exercises it. It gives it a workout. And it's hard because we're all distracted and our attention span is fucking terrible. So it's hard to go to a museum and watch a film, but it's really important. But you can go on a treadmill and you're not doing anything for an hour and everyone's fine doing that, but they're not fine, doing something that's a bit intellectually challenging. I think it's important. It's important. Kids do it better than grown olds now.
I agree and I disagree, because most people are not very healthy, so most people aren't going to the gym. That's a thing. But also, I don't want to make a trip to the museum like, this is good for your health. It is good for your health. I completely agree with you, but we have to delete this.
You have to enjoy it.
We have to enjoy it. We have to delete this from the video, because I don't want anyone to think that it's good.
But it's hard to do.
No.
Really?
It's not hard to do.
You see, I don't know. I like the art that's hard to do.
I do too. I like the hardest art. I like the art that makes me cry and I feel pain. I mean,
but it's hard, I don't think there's only gratification from things that is easy, but there's no real benefit from those things. I think things that you work hard at have extra value because you've worked hard at them. So I like hard art. Hard art's such a good term. Title, killer title.
It is
hard art.
Title. The other night, I thought I should do a whole series on dark art too.
Dark art. That's like magic.
Well, no, it would just be dark.
Or just like searching around in the room.
Can't see it. Impossible to see.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and I made this weird analogy, which actually I was thinking about it last night, and I think it's quite good. The analogy is that, you've got, like, do you know omakase? Mm-hmm. Like Japanese food, and they cook for you, the chef cooks for you. This is a bit elitist of me to be like, make an analogy about omakase. I sound like an idiot. But, when you go to an omakase restaurant, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know how many courses it is. You don't know how much it'll cost. You don't know if you'll be full. You don't know what the ingredients are. You don't know how long it'll take. You don't know if you'll like it. But you will be challenged, yeah? And then if you think about, on the flip side of that, you have McDonald's. When you we all go to McDonald's, even the people that say they don't go there. Don't you go there? Really? I'm sure you do.
I don't.
I think you're fibbing.
I really don't.
Burger King.
The last fast food I had was Burger King, but it was before my 11-year-old son was born. So it's a long time.
Okay, well, you can nip out to the drive-thru after this.
Perfect.
And you can...
But now I sound like the wanker who's like really elitist, so exactly. I saved you.
There you go. But with McDonald's, when you eat it, you know exactly what it's going to cost. You know how long it'll take to eat. You know that it's really bad for you. You know that you need to do it and that you're being naughty, but you know next time afterwards you'll say, I'm never going to do that again, and you'll feel guilty. It's a general kind of McDonald's thing. But you will be pleased. So on one hand, you have being pleased, and on the other hand, you have being challenged. Yeah? Mm-hmm. I think that's what art is now. There's like two arts, I think. There's
pleased and being challenged.
Yeah, there's an audience that wants to be pleased and content. And those things are artworks that usually meet expectation, make people feel comfortable that, I know that looks like art. I've seen it before. I know who it's by. And that makes me feel safe and pleased. And then there's another audience that I like, they want to be challenged. And they're like, what the fuck's that? That is so on the brink of not even being art. It's so avant-garde. It's way before its time. I don't know even if I can call it art, and I don't know how to think about it. And I'm into the audiences that want to be challenged, not the ones that just want to meet expectation. I want an audience that also wants art to defy expectation and rewrite the rules of what it is. That's what I want. It's a really unpopular, untrendy thing to want. I should have been born in the 70s, probably. I was born in the 70s, what the fuck am I saying? I should have lived in the 70s.
Grown up in the 70s. Yeah.
Or, yeah, I don't know, yeah. That's my analogy for art, and I think, yeah, I just like art that's really...
challenging.
Yeah.
I'm here for that. On that note, we're done.
Is that it? Is it a negative end?
No.
Okay, cool.
I don't think so.
Should we go to McDonald's?
We should probably go to McDonald's.
Value meal.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Scene Podcast. If you liked what you heard, I'd love it if you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to connect with us between episodes, follow us on Instagram at WatchSceneArt. I'm Carrie Scott, and I'll see you next time. Get it?